put in the time now in your 20s to set yourself up for success, because you don't want to be 50 worrying about where your next paycheck's coming from, or having to clock in or clock out. So yeah, I mean, you could go ahead and quit Blue Board if you want, but understand that if you just take on one job, you're going to be working one job for the rest of your life. And that was just such an eye opener for me. Ever since then, like the whole concept of work has just completely changed for me. And, I put in 10, 12, 15-hour days, and it's become totally normal because of that mindset. So that's my biggest advice for anyone. The way you want to look at your 20s is it's the time to build. So make sacrifices. I mean, I still haven't been to a music festival yet. All my friends keep telling me about Coachella, Lollapalooza, even here in San Francisco. You have whatever the one here is in Golden Gate Park every year. I just don't have the time for it. I just don't have the bandwidth for it from a mental capacity standpoint.
Welcome to the Edge of Excellence. And today we have a great show for you. We have Omar Zarabi, founder of Port 53 Cybersecurity, co-founder of Blue Board, 31-year-old Lamborghini driver, who's here today to give you the cheat codes to excellence, like driving a Lamborghini. He's here to talk about, if you're going into the workforce, why not tech? And how every single career could be converted to a tech career, and how to turn the chip on your shoulder, if you've got one, into a power play by never victimizing, and how to turn the chip on your shoulder, if you've got one, into a power play by never victimizing yourself and making some sacrifices to turn your 30s into the 30s dreams were made of. Welcome to the Edge of Excellence. Well, Omar, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for making time. I know you have a super busy schedule, and you're sitting there on the 54th floor of whatever that office is next to the Transamerica building, enjoying your success. And I want to start off the show asking you, what is your definition of excellence? Because you sure seem to be practicing it.
Thanks so much for having me, Matt. Yeah, I think everyone's definition of excellence is a little different. For me, personally, I would say it's the ability to do what you say on a consistent basis. If you set goals, whether they're small or big, and you miss them, that's when you start losing a lot of confidence. But as you set goals and as you start achieving them, that gives you the confidence to set bigger and bigger goals. And as you start, following through on those bigger goals, you suddenly realize and look back and you've accomplished a lot. So really having that mindset of following through on whatever you say it is that you're going to do, I think is what defines and separates individuals who are excellent versus those who aren't.
So that sounds like integrity. So you've got a lot of focus on integrity. So without integrity, one cannot be excellent, you're saying?
Definitely. Integrity and being honest with yourself. If you continue to tell people that you're going to, do something, or continue to tell yourself you're going to do something, and you don't do it, you're never going to be excellent. So 100%, having that follow through, I think, is what leads to whatever field you're in or whatever your passion is that you're pursuing. You got to have that follow through in order to achieve any level of excellence.
That's so different than anything I've ever heard of. It's almost as if you just, for your life, did what you said you would do, and it led you to excellence, but you got to be on a different plane. I mean, I could say I'm going to do nothing today, but that's not excellent. Right. I could say I'm going to go screw a bunch of things up. That's not excellence. So you're kind of starting off on a different paradigm than some people start off on.
Yeah, I think, if you look at, what you say you're going to do, a lot of times that is what ends up being the biggest limiting factor. One's accomplishments, right, is what they think is possible, what they think is achievable. So for me, whenever I'm in an environment or I'm in a situation, the first thing I really try to understand is, what is average, can be replicated, or everyone is doing, and once you have a good understanding of what average is within that environment, whether, you're a high school student, whether you're, in college, or whether you're in the workforce and technology, or in whatever sort of industry, But once you have that understanding of what's average, then from there you can start setting goals that are, above average or even, some pretty aggressive goals. That's what I think differentiates, people from kind of just doing repetitive tasks and kind of falling, in that herd mentality from those who really strive, is that initial understanding of, hey, what is, considered average in this role that I'm in. And once you have that, then you can put in the work and put in the effort and put in those goals that'll lead to you becoming, extraordinary, or you becoming, excellent.
So that's exactly where I thought you were going. You don't know, right? You're in high school. We're going to get to your high school in a second. You don't know what's going on. You just notice that you know what average is. You're being better than average, and you start doing what you say. But the goal is to be the best, right? So if you want to be and I understand you're coming out of college, you don't know if you can be the best. You don't know what the best is. But as you start doing what you're saying, as you prove to yourself that you deserve the arrogance, that you never were arrogant, I always was. You deserve the arrogance that is now becoming confidence. Then you aim to be the best. So when I used to, as you know, I used to be the global chairman of the Entrepreneurs Group, and people would ask me, hey, there's 20,000 members worldwide. Hey, there's all these people that are CEOs of billion-dollar businesses. Why did you become the chairman of the board? And I always had one answer. I was the only guy that did what I said. And it was amazing. You're working with these famous entrepreneurs, and they say they're going to do something, and some of them didn't do it.
Right.
So they didn't get to the next level because they didn't do it in their companies as well as in the organization. But over time, I realized it was more than just doing what I said. It was more than making the phone calls, reaching the goals, showing up on time, finishing things on time. It was that I started off wanting to be the best global chairman. I was the 25th one, wanting to be the best global chairman there ever had been. And when I joined boards, I want to be the best chairman anyone's ever seen. So I like that. Integrity of I'm going to do what I say, and I want to be the best.
Yeah. And if you don't have that desire to be the best, what you'll suddenly quickly realize is that it's easy to lose the passion, right? And it's easy to become content if you're not striving to be the best. And when you're comparing yourself to average, and then you suddenly start working a little harder and you start seeing success above average, then it's really easy to take that success and take a step back. And I see this a lot. And to be honest, Matt, it's something that I've really had to work on, in a diligent manner over the last 6 to 9 months, is as you start accomplishing these goals, and you see this with a lot of successful people, how do you ensure that you're continuing to put yourself in a position where you're still really hungry and you're still, striving for more and more, while not forgetting what got you to where you were? And a lot of times as people accomplish certain things, they tend to forget the small basic things that got them to where they were. And that's definitely, I think if you want to be excellent long-term, you look at, the Kobe Bryants of the world, the Michael Jordans of the world, the Tom Brady's of the world, right? No matter what level of excellence they've achieved in their eyes, they're still waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning the next day, putting in the same amount of work that they did 20 years before, right? So really having that level of discipline and that understanding that, hey, no matter, how great, I think I've gotten or how much better above average I've reached, there's still a lot more to go. You can't have that drive unless you have the desire to want to be the best. And that's really what it takes in today's world. I mean, there's so much great competition out there. If you're not striving to be the best, you will suddenly end up, being part of the average and part of the herd, because it's easy to lose that passion quickly if you're not striving for big goals like that.
Yeah. How does the fat cat stay skinny mentally?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And let me tell you, I'm a little bit older than you, Omar. So that part of what you just said is a lifelong struggle, because it's waves, right? You're doing well. Maybe you come off the wave because you had a bad experience and you're upset and you want to get depressed and go to bed and not be excellent anymore. Can't do that. Or maybe it's because you've been super successful and you already achieved all the dreams you had when you were young, and can't do that either. And I know I talked to you before about one of your competitors that I think would be a great person to partnership later, because he's got that $8 billion security company. And I was talking to him, and he was talking about going public. But the reason why was just because he hadn't done it before.
Right.
He wanted to try it and be excellent. Maybe I'll do it because I'd like to drive my shareholder value up. But I'm sitting there going, man, that is the guy that's constantly reinventing his drive. So how do you do that? How do you reinvent your drive? And how old are you? I know I'm not supposed to ask, but this is not a legal proceeding. How old are you and how do you maintain your drive?
It's funny you say that. It's I just turned 31 last week. So it was
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, maintaining that drive, I think, for individuals like myself, or I'm sure like this gentleman who runs this cybersecurity company, I think motivation has to be intrinsic, right? And you don't get to that level if you're only motivated by outside things. So if you have an intrinsic motivation, then how do you keep that up? And I think it's different for each individual. But for me, it really has to do with accomplishing personal goals that I've never accomplished. And the way I continue to set those goals is by looking at my mentors and looking at the people around me who I look up to and seeing what they've accomplished, and then wanting to aspire towards that, right? So one little perfect example. So ever since I was a kid, a big goal of mine was to have a Lamborghini, right? And that was like the epitome of, in terms of transportation of success for me, was having a Lamborghini. Well, I did that on my 30th birthday. I was able to get myself a Lamborghini. And that right there, it could have been like, okay, you're 30 years old and you just accomplished what you thought was, the epitome of success from a transportation standpoint. So I could have easily been content with that. But what I did was I put myself in situations and environments around other people who've accomplished so much more than just a Lamborghini. One little example, Grant Cardone, who's a big mentor of mine, talks about buying a jet. So the first thing I did after I got into a Lamborghini was, all right, this is great, but now what do I have to do in order to get myself in a private jet? In order to own a private jet. So, setting those goals and continuing to look at, because your viewpoint of the world is limited to what you expose yourself to, right? So if you're not exposing yourself to individuals who are doing, things at a much higher level than you are, and I guarantee you, no matter how high you're doing things, there are individuals like that. And you're just surrounding yourself with, people who, you've kind of grown up with, or the people who are just at your stage and at your level. Well, you're never going to advance, and you're never going to push yourself to accomplish those bigger and loftier goals. So that's one thing that I've continued to do is to set those goals. And those goals are created by me looking at, individuals who've accomplished way more than I have, been more successful than I am right now. And really looking at the things that I appreciate in them, that I admire in them, and then going after it and setting goals for myself to be able to attain those certain things or build those certain characteristics or those certain traits.
Okay. And you're a car guy. I'm a car guy. There's a couple reasons to kind of go off script, and one of them's cars. Which Lamborghini?
The Urus.
Oh, okay. So I was going to say, was it the one you had on your poster as a kid? But no, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. No, it didn't even exist then. But that was the thing. I thought, as a 30-year-old, it would have been a little too pretentious driving around in a Huracan or something like that here in San Francisco. So decided to go with the more subtle Lamborghini.
Well, that was my goal too, by the way. Mine was a Ferrari, and I got one when I was 27. And then I got a second one when I was 31. And then I got a psychologist to work with me on dealing with the guilt I had. Because, I do a lot of charity work and I try to help out. Mostly, I spent a lot of time with high school kids, but I spent a lot of time with hungry people too. And I had a real problem that I had the cars, and I had to hire a psychologist for it. And I figured it out, because it wasn't a look at me thing. It was, I like to drive like a maniac, and I like excellence. Yep. And that SUV that you drive is the most excellent SUV. And if you have the baseball glove interior, which I hope you do you have it?
Yeah.
Oh, I love the baseball glove.
Come out, man. I'm telling you, man, next time you're in San Francisco, I'm going to take you on a drive. We're going to stop by your favorite restaurant. We're going to come up here, take a few pictures up from the view.
Yeah.
It'll be a good time for sure.
This is sounding better and better. I'm so glad I do this podcast now. Well, let's get back on the script and go back to high school a little bit, because you haven't always had a Urus and a 53rd floor apartment and office in downtown San Francisco. And you probably didn't expect you'd have it by 31. You probably didn't think that when you did have it, you'd be resetting the bar higher. Actually, I'm going to stop for 1 second. We talked a lot about money and cars, and I'm a money and car guy, but that's not my value system. And I know you, and it's not your value system. It's not about that, right? Why does it matter? Why do you get it? You don't care about money. Why do you care about chasing it down? Or why do you care that you get the Lamborghini?
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly, right? It's it's a sign of excellence, right? It's how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? And when it comes to money too, I think it's an indication of value, right? I'm a wholehearted believer of the value that you bring to the market is what you're going to get paid back in return. So that's why I track it and I measure it, religiously with every single person within my organization, and especially my sales reps and my account executives who are money hungry. I focus never on the dollars. It's always on the value. Hey, if you're solving bigger problems, if you're able to, help organizations in a larger manner, and if you're able to deliver, bigger and bigger value and more value to your customer, that's a definition of business. That customer will pay you for that value. So, yeah, I think it's a great measurement to the level, or a measurement of the level of value that you and your organization can bring to the table. So that's how I look at money is, hey, I mean, are we succeeding? Are we adding enough value to our customers, or are we not? And if you're not, then you're not getting paid for it, plain and simple. But if you're bringing enough value, and you should reward yourself, because for me, the car was 100% more of a, hey, let me put myself in an excellent mindset from the moment I get out of bed till, the moment I get back home. And, getting into a car like that, driving to your office, it definitely puts you in a different mindset. Going to a meeting in a car like that definitely gets you in a different mindset, that excellence mindset. So, you're not going to be getting in a Lamborghini, going to the office and not dressing up, right? You're going to dress up in a suit if you're going to be hopping in a Lamborghini and going into an office. So little things like that I've done since as far back as I can remember, little tricks or little sort of cheat codes for yourself. I'm sure everyone has them. Figure those out for your own. For me, it's 100%. I mean, one little example, I hated waking up in the mornings. It was my least favorite thing, but I knew that if I really wanted to accomplish what I wanted to do, I had to wake up, before 5 a.m. So what I started doing is I got a personal trainer and just, forced myself and forced him to get me to the gym at 5 a.m. every morning. That was when I was like 23, 24, and that habit stuck. So I put myself in a position where I had to build that habit. Same exactly, little cheat codes, for example, dressing up. I dress up in a suit every day, not just to show off, but because of the fact that it gives me that extra kick, that extra level of confidence when I walk into a conversation with the CIO, or when I walk into a conversation with the CISO and I ask for a $500,000 check, right? So, and the same exact thing, the car was a cheat code for myself to put myself in a mentality every single day before I get into the office. And that mentality is that mentality of excellence.
I love that. So let's go back to high school, before you had the cheat codes, before you defined your excellence, before there even was a Urus that you say so much better than I say it. What was life like? How did you see yourself, and how did you find your path?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in high school, the one thing that I always felt, I always had a chip on my shoulder. I mean, I came in here when I was 4 years old from Afghanistan to the Bay Area, didn't speak a lick of English. And I remember, like, in kindergarten, first grade, how much shit I got from kids because I didn't speak English, and because, I didn't wear like the regular clothes. I used to wear like traditional clothes going into school. And that sort of bullying that I experienced, I think early on, definitely put a chip on my shoulder. And that chip was more like, hey, like, I'm better than you. I just need to prove it to you now, right? And I don't care about my clothes. I don't care about my language. I know for a fact that I work harder than you, and I'm better than you. So now it's just a matter of proving it out. So that's what it was in high school. I was an AP and honors classes since as far back, since ninth grade. My older sister, she was known at that school. She had just gotten into Stanford when I was a freshman there. So we were looked at, as a whole family, pretty high up from an academia standpoint at my high school. But at the same time, I was a jock. I played basketball, since sixth grade. I was cool with the basketball kids. I used to hang out with the jocks. I hated that nerd aspect of me. I tried to hide it as much as possible, even though I would crush it in classes. So because of that, though, all throughout high school, I feel like I had an upper, like a upper leg than the average college student. I felt like I was a little more competitive because, I had AP and honors classes, but I played varsity for 3 years. And, at that time, the jocks were dumb. And then the nerds and the smart people in AP and honors classes weren't playing sports. So me, I felt like, okay, cool. I'm doing both of these. I'm getting along with both these groups. I'm able to have intelligent conversations with both these groups. So that's pretty cool. But then when I got to Davis, when I got into college, I suddenly realized that everyone had AP and honors classes, and everyone was the star of their varsity sports team. And that's when I started feeling average and feeling normal again, which I absolutely hated. As a freshman in college, 30,000 students feeling like you were just one of. And that was actually a big reason why I decided to take on College Works as an internship my freshman year when I was introduced to it.
I didn't even remember that you were a freshman. So funny. And I talk to people about this. There's prejudice in the world, right? You got brown skin, I got white skin. You probably feel it a little bit more than me. You and I are men. My wife's a woman. She probably feels it a little differently than us. But I tell people, you get the cards you're dealt with.
100%.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So you turn that prejudice around. College Works, we say everyone's going to be against you because you're young. So why not talk about how you haven't picked up the bad habits yet? Or you're the guy that can't speak the language right, isn't wearing the right clothes. Maybe you're just unique.
Right. No, I think, that's the one thing that I owe a lot of my success to, is the fact that I've never victimized myself in any regard. And a lot of that has to do with, obviously the level of support I saw from my mom and my dad while I took on these different projects and these different challenges. But yeah, there's been plenty of times where, even like coworkers or managers or VPs, just like you, Matt, like VPs over here in sales, I mean, they love to joke around and they feel comfortable. And yeah, I mean, I joke around back, but, whenever race would come up, people would be like, oh, like, is that cool? Is that all right? I'm like, dude, I don't care. Go ahead and make fun. Go ahead and joke around. I don't take it personally. That has no bearing on who I am as a person. So you want to make those jokes, go right ahead. And even in day-to-day business,
you're not getting promoted, but go ahead and make those jokes.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So whatever. And same exact thing. I mean, there's been a lot of times, especially, being an Afghan American building a international cybersecurity firm, where has been pushback, where people have asked questions and even customers like, oh, where are you from? And, a lot of people, even around me, I've seen use that as a reason as to why not to do certain things, or why not to push the limits, or use it as a reason behind why they weren't able to accomplish something. And that's just so frustrating. I mean, life isn't fair, plain and simple. And I tell that to everybody. But one thing that we got to realize is truly how blessed we are. If you look at, for me personally, I have traveled the world just like you have, and I see the opportunities available to very talented, very smart individuals, kids who are way smarter than I was back in high school and college, and they just don't have the opportunity to shine. They don't have the opportunity to let their stars shine because of the country that they were born in, or because of the environments that they were put in and whatnot. I mean, think of how many other Bill Gates, how many, Mark Zuckerbergs never got an opportunity to let their star shine because they were born in, the Middle East, or they were born in Africa. So just having that mentality and that mindset throughout my 20s has definitely helped me in pushing through and staying motivated, regardless of what the hurdles are, whether they were racially or whether they were, stereotypically or whatever. You're going to face them. Whether you're a white man, whether you're a black man, whether you're an Afghan, whether you're a woman, there's never going to be a situation where you're treated 100% fairly. Get used to it. Don't let it affect you too much, and use it, like I mentioned, as a chip on your shoulder and as ammo.
So I'm going to come back to the chip on the shoulder, but I got to challenge you on one thing. Mm-hmm. If anyone ever says a racial joke around me, my response is always the same. You can't talk like that around me. And then people will say, what do you mean? I say, you can't talk like that around me. And I'll tell them the story of my conversation with my grandfather, who was racist. And I sat him down when he was 85 and said, you can't talk like that around me. I'll tell him the story about my buddy from Buffalo, whose brother said something racist. And I said, you can't talk like that around me. And I have a circle around me at all times, an invisible circle, where people rise up a little bit better in how they talk and their discourse. because I don't want to hear it from anybody anywhere. So I challenge you to not let them make those jokes, besides just firing them, which I know you probably do.
Yeah, no, but I think for me, what it is, and trust me, now that I'm at this level, like no one's making those sorts of jokes, but this is when I was an entry level sales guy. Right?
Gotcha.
100%. But the way I look at it, as an Afghan American here in Silicon Valley is, if I, respond to that, or if I let it affect me in any way, well, that's only going to sort of justify their perception and whatnot. So for me, it's like, okay, well, as long as I continue to be the best version of myself, that's the way I'm going to fight these injustices. That's the way I'm going to change people's perceptions. This guy thinks that Afghans are like this. Well, let him get a chance to know me. By him getting to know me, that's going to change his whole perception of Afghans. And I guarantee he thinks Afghans are like that. And he's never met an Afghan before in his life, probably, right? So that's how I combat those issues is, you know what? Let me show you what an Afghan is and what an Afghan American is, and then make your decision.
I love that. What I love the most is your chip on your shoulder, though. So you don't know this, but my parents were somewhat poor when I was growing up. We were on food stamps for a while, living in Coolidge, Arizona. I used to say from food stamps to Ferraris. And then we were kind of lower middle class. And then we were, middle class. And all I wanted to be was upper class.
1%.
Yeah. And I don't know why I was so motivated by it, but part of it was the pain, because my grandparents paid for me to go to an elite private school. My dad picked me up in an old truck and everybody else had fancy cars. And people look down on me. And there's a lot of people out there. Someone's listening to this right now that's got a chip on their shoulder. And if I could go back to my 20-year-old self, it's just ridiculous. I mean, I've studied Vedanta. I've met the Dalai Lama. I mean, you're not supposed to think like this, but I'm not enlightened. I don't want to be fully enlightened. I like that I had that chip on my shoulder, that I wanted to shove Ken Johns' face into the dirt with my success. Because, I'm in New Mexico and people would like this guy, Ken Johns, actually literally kind of screwed up my life a little bit because he made a mistake and thought I had done something to his daughter, which doesn't sound very good on the recording, but he thought I TP'd their house or something. And I hadn't done it. And this guy kind of made my life miserable. And I thought, you know what I want to do? I want to be able to do that. But unlike that asshole, instead of kind of pointing my power in a negative way to show everybody that I was superior, and I see you doing it too, I was able to lift the other people and help them out. But the chip on my shoulder from wanting to kick everyone's ass at the Albuquerque Academy has driven me so finally to the point, and I talked about the psychologist, finally to the point where I let it go, but I didn't let it go completely because I still want to kick all their asses.
I think success 100% is the best revenge, right? And for me, whenever somebody tells me, especially if it's something I'm passionate about, if somebody tells me that I can't do something or, that's unattainable, that just like motivates me more than anything else. So 100%. I think if you don't have a chip on your shoulder, go and find one. In your early 20s, and if you're in college, find something to piss you off or to put that chip on your shoulder, because it helps out, man. And especially when you're going after lofty goals and things get rough, that chip on the shoulder is what kicks you out of bed in the morning and gets you to grind that 15, 20-hour day if things aren't going well. So whatever it is, whether it's, a personal vendetta, whether it's, proving someone wrong, whether it's, getting to a certain level, in terms of success for yourself to prove other people, wrong, find that chip and definitely, use it as an edge for yourself, because it'll help long-term.
And please remember to also read the books written by the Dalai Lama to mellow out the edge of the chip
a little bit, right?
And I strongly recommend finding a executive coach or psychologist that will help you harness that energy. But I used to say, and I don't know if this will make the cut, but I used to say this: I can't wait to get in my private jet and fly around in circles above Ken Johns' house, taking crap after crap and having him dumped down on his house from the air.
That's awesome.
That sounds great. editing guys can maybe leave that in, maybe leave it out. You all can decide.
We'll let them decide.
All right. So you got a chip on your shoulder. You got some good sports skills and some great grades. You go to UC Davis. You find all these crazy people are in the same boat as you because they got into a UC school. You joined CollegeWorks to kind of set yourself apart. And then you moved on and started a couple companies. Now you're employing a bunch of people. Oh, and by the way, one of the things Omar's looking for in the podcast is if you've done CollegeWorks, he wants to hire you. But I want to talk to you for a second. Just if you look back, first of all, you got to tell us what you do because someone's listening to this call right now and they're thinking tech and they're thinking cybersecurity and they're thinking Lamborghini and they're thinking, I'm an Afghan American too. I want to follow that guy's lead. What exactly do you do on a daily basis? What skills does it take to do it?
Yeah. I mean, I think, just technology as a whole just has opened up so much opportunities because it's broken down barriers and it's broken down, territories in a way. I mean, your reach with technology is unlimited, which is proven with our company over here at Port 53. We're a 4-year-old company. We have, customers all over the nation, every single state in the U.S. and across Canada and the U.K. already. We're looking to expand to Australia and Dubai here in 2021. So technology as a whole, I think, is just a massive opportunity. If you look at myself, I graduated UC Davis with an economics major. I got into cybersecurity. It was actually serendipitously. I was one of my former CollegeWorks interns. She was a recruiter here in San Francisco. And this is after I'd done my interview at Google, at Salesforce, at Cisco. I'd gotten a few offers, but she's like, hey, this is a startup. It's a cybersecurity company. You should go meet with at least the VP. Met with the VP, ended up being a 3.5 hour long interview. Absolutely loved the culture. Started at OpenDNS. That was the name of the company. And basically what we do, at OpenDNS, what they did is they leveraged DNS. So DNS is the phone book to the internet. So when you put, let's that example, like google.com in your web browser, there's actually an IP address on the back end that phones home. So the internet doesn't talk with letters, it only can talk with numbers, right? So just like on your cell phone where you have like mom saved or brother saved, when you press mom, there's actually a phone number that it dials on the back end. That's the exact same thing with the internet. So, our first layer of defense and what we do with customers is protect at the DNS layer. So if you put google.com, we want to make sure that it's dialing the IP address to google.com. Or, if you put facebook.com, we want to make sure it's going to the Facebook IP addresses and servers. It's not getting redirected to go somewhere else. And so that's our first line of defense. And then from there, what we really aim to do is work with SMB customers, so small and mid-sized businesses across the nation who don't necessarily have the cybersecurity expertise, who don't have the engineers internally. We really help them in understanding what risks they see on a day in and day out basis when it comes to cyber, and then come up with a roadmap of, hey, here's where your risks lay. Here's where you need to be in terms of your appetite for risk. And then from there, help them in deploying the tools and putting in the policies and putting in the processes to help them in getting there. So, we say we're a cybersecurity company, but, we're a lot more than that, really, when we engage with customers. We really help them in understanding risk and then helping them in mitigate that, and in turn, giving them the confidence to continue to leverage technology to give themselves a competitive advantage in their market space. So that's what I do on a day in and day out basis. But I mean, I think technology as a whole, there's so much opportunity in it. Like I said, I'm a cybersecurity CEO. I was an econ major before, right? So you don't necessarily have to be an engineer in order to break into tech. You don't have to, know how to code or be a software developer in order to break into tech. There's so many different roles. If you go to a technology startup or technology company, you could go in, as a marketing major and get into their, marketing side or their business development side. You could get in from the HR route, and work your way up there within a tech company. You can get into sales, you get into business operations, you can get into the finance side of a tech company, right? So that's my biggest advice. And I think it was the biggest godsend for me back in 2013 is, get into tech, whatever your major is, whatever you're studying, you could apply that to a technology company because with technology, I mean, like I said, there are no limits. If I was running a physical security company, The only people I'd be able to tailor to would be those customers who I could actually physically send humans to, right? Or go in and physically protect. But with cyber, I mean, like I mentioned, we're protecting customers all over the world from my desk here in San Francisco. So yeah, that's my biggest advice. And that's what I do on a day in and day out basis.
Sold. So if you're like me and you just heard that and you're an entrepreneur, it's port53.com to hire Omar and his team to come save you. So I don't think we've done business with you with National Services Group. We need to after that spiel. And if you don't want to get into the tech world after listening to that, maybe you're crazy, but Omar's looking to help you do that. And I normally don't stop in the middle and say that about people's companies, but that was amazing. Thank you for that.
Of course.
So you started this business. You've gone through all this stuff in your life. You've gotten to this first level of success. Practicing excellence for a whole 31 years. And looking way, way, way back to your 20s, you made some sacrifices. What sacrifices did you make that you never regret?
Oh, man. I think my 20s was defined by sacrifices, right? And I think the best way to put it is the mindset that you want to have in your 20s. Bill Gates has been interviewed plenty of times, and he said this: the reason why that he is where he's at today is because he didn't take a single day off in his 20s, right? And I'm a huge believer in that. That became really prevalent to me when I was working at OpenDNS. This was back in 2014, and I was starting Blueboard on the side. So OpenDNS cybersecurity company Blueboard was basically an employee rewards platform that me and one of my former CollegeWorks buddies actually decided to start up, a way to reward employees with experiences as opposed to with things like gift cards or cash bonuses. So, being a top performer at OpenDNS, trying to take off, Blueboard from the ground. I remember there was one day, it was like a 17-hour work day. I was working the East Coast during my OpenDNS days. So I'd gotten in at 4 a.m., cranked out a full day of work, absolutely had an amazing day. And then we had a 4 p.m. appointment with this company called PagerDuty. They were about a 300-person Series C company to talk to them about Blueboard and trying to sell them on having Blueboard as their sales incentives as opposed to, a cash bonus or anything like that. So we go into that meeting. It was me, my CEO of Blueboard and the other co-founder. We do an hour-long pitch, and we absolutely get chewed apart. Like the CEO of the company's there, the COO, the director of sales, and they just absolutely, break down the company, like call us out, like say it's half-baked, say we're not anywhere close to what we're positioning over here. The guy literally called us, "You guys are a kid trying to start up a little company here." And I remember leaving that meeting after I just had a crazy day. I think I closed something like 80 grand at OpenDNS that day alone. So you can feel, you see, sense like the dichotomy of like having such a great day at one job, just absolutely getting chewed out at the other startup I was starting. So we go back to the Blueboard office, and it was like in a little incubation office at the time. And we sat there until like 9 p.m. just hashing out like, okay, well, how can we improve the pitch? How can we improve the positioning? Do we want to go after sales? Should we have this more of an HR tool, so on and so forth? So it's like 9:30 and I'm driving home and I'm absolutely tired. I got to wake up at 4:30 the next morning again. I call my dad and I told him, I was like, hey, I had a really good day at OpenDNS. Here's what happened at Blueboard. And to be honest, like, I don't know if I really want to continue with Blueboard. I think I'm just going to go all in on OpenDNS and focus all my efforts there because I'm doing so well at it. And my dad was like, straight up told me, like, yeah, no, I think it's good to, continue to focus on what you're good at. But plain and simple, man, like, if you want to just work one job, if you want to work a 9 to 5 right now, and you want to be okay with that, you don't want to take on any side projects, well, just understand that you're going to be 50 years old and you're going to be working a 9 to 5. You're going to be my age and you're going to still be working a 9 to 5. If you want an opportunity to live life on your terms, if you want to have the freedom to do what you want with who you want to do it, when you want to do it, by the time you're 35, 40, well, you have to put in those 15, 20-hour work weeks now. You have to be okay when you don't have the other obligations, you don't have the distractions, you have the energy. Put in the time now in your 20s to set yourself up for success, because you don't want to be 50 worrying about where your next paycheck's coming from or having to clock in or clock out. So yeah, I mean, you could go ahead and quit Blueboard if you want, but understand that if you just take on one job, you're going to be working one job for the rest of your life. And that was just such an eye opener for me. Ever since then, like the whole concept of work has just completely changed for me. And, I put in 10, 12, 15-hour days, and it's become totally normal because of that mindset. So that's my biggest advice for anyone. The way you want to look at your 20s is it's the time to build. So make sacrifices. I mean, I still haven't been to a music festival yet. All my friends keep telling me about Coachella, Lollapalooza, even here in San Francisco, you have whatever the one that here is in Golden Gate Park every year. I just don't have the time for it. I just don't have the bandwidth for it from a mental capacity standpoint. So one little example is that, so, and then just over the last 5 years, if you look at my work travel, or if you look at my travel as a whole, I took one vacation, and that was after, I left OpenDNS after the acquisition by Cisco. I took a 2-week vacation to Turkey before I started at Blueboard full time. But besides that, every other trip I've gone to has been work related, and I've made sure that it's been work related. So my trips I've gone to London, it's been to start up our offices there. It's to go meet with, Cisco account managers. Every time I go to New York, it's to meet with account managers there. It's to look at office space. If I'm going to Miami, it's for a conference or for a seminar. So yeah, I mean, there's ways to cheat it to where you can still enjoy it, but don't take any days off. You want to enjoy the process in your 20s, but everything that you do should be with that growth mentality, with that building mentality and that building mindset. If it's not helping you build towards a better future, then don't do it. Put it aside. You don't need to waste time celebrating a 3-day weekend over in the desert for no reason. What the hell are you celebrating? You're 24, dude. So that's my mentality, and that's my biggest advice.
What are you? That's going to be a hard one for our audience to stomach. What are you celebrating? You're 24. I love it. So the rule of 72, right? Compound interest. Mm-hmm. And that if you invest $5,000 a year in your retirement account between 20 and 30 years old and never invest another dime again, you'll have more money in your retirement account than if you invest in your 30s, 40s, 50s, all the way up to 65 because of compound interest. And what I discovered early in life, if you invest the hours in your career in your 20s, you're so far ahead that the rest of the group never gives up. But you're talking about freedom, right? You're 31 years old. You can work 15 hours a week or not. You have the freedom to choose. When you're 40 years old, you might have children. And it's a bummer situation to be in if you were smoking weed through your whole 20s and popping Molly, going to the music festivals, and you forgot to work.
Yep.
And then when you're in your 40s, you don't have the freedom. So you don't get to take off and go tour colleges with your kids, or take off for the middle of the day baseball game, or go to Sacramento on the 4th grade trip because you're working for the man because you didn't get it done in your 20s.
In your 20s, exactly. And that was a message that my dad, told me. And it was one conversation. I actually never had a chance to bring it up with him. He unfortunately passed away a year and a half ago. But to this day, that was one of the probably most life-changing conversations I've ever had.
He knew you appreciated it.
Yeah.
So you also, as you were talking there, you kept talking about closing deals. You're in the tech industry. We've got engineers I've met that are closing deals. So in your business, you're not a sales guy. You're not closing deals anymore. How important are your sales skills and the skills that you acquired through selling things as far as it goes to management and leading your business?
Yeah, 100%. I think, if anyone wants to run a business, you'll suddenly soon realize that a lot of business is sales, right? You might not be selling a product, you might not be selling to a customer, but you're constantly selling, your vision. You're constantly selling why your way is the right way to move things forward, right? And those skills have definitely stuck with me, and they're more important, I think, now than ever before because, the level I'm playing at, right? So I'm sure I might not be, talking to customers. I still try to sit in on sales calls with my reps, here and there, just to, have a pulse on the market and whatnot. But, a lot of my sales happens, a lot of my meetings on a day in and day out basis is with partners, trying to get them to focus more on our efforts and trying to get them to, invest more and more, in our go-to-market strategy. that's all sales. Me selling the these large multi-billion-dollar companies on why our route to market is much more effective than whatever they think is, or whatever they're trying to do. Going through like mergers and acquisitions, looking to, buy technologies, but, buy companies. Those are all sales, and it's not direct sales, but there are a lot of things around like, understanding need, developing need, building that, kind of assuming the sale, kind of showing them how life is on the other side of the fence, how much it's greener, things like that definitely stick with you long term. And they're going to be very valuable. So sales is something you'll quickly realize, regardless of what industry you go to or what industry you start a company in, it's going to be something that you will use long term, no doubt.
So I went to Indiana this weekend and ran some trainings for College Works. So I was up there teaching the need satisfaction selling cycle. Nice. Funny that you're still using it. I'm going to close out with this. I go to these YPO events and I go to these YEO events, and they bring in these people to teach us how to make sure our kids still have that drive. It's Richard and Linda Eyre call it the entitlement trap. And I strongly recommend to anybody listening that has kids to pick up the book, The Entitlement Trap. How do you make sure that you have $1 billion, that your children still have that drive? Maybe not a chip on their shoulder, but still have that drive. And I live in Orange County, California. I have friends that grew up like that. And Sean Baldwin's one of them that I can think of. The kids got the drive. And I every once in a while, I'll go to their parents, my friend Alex and two friends, Alex and Lisa. I'll sneak aside and talk to their parents. I've done it a couple of times. I'm going to do it again and say, hey, you did a good job. I mean, how did you do this? They still have the drive. They still have the chip on the shoulder. The other day, every once in a while, I'll watch an interview for College Works, and there was a woman on the interview from Oregon. I don't know her name, but I was watching the interview doing training, like what you do when you go on sales calls. And this young lady, first of all, she's with it. She's answering the questions, asking the right questions, and she starts to let out her history. And her history was she's lived in 5 foster homes in 5 years. And she was in one of the homes, and I called Sean afterwards, Sean Levy, Sean. I said, hey, I saw this interview. That woman really impressed me. And it was right around Thanksgiving. I'm like, you know how I am. I'm a softie. I wanted to know what she was doing for Thanksgiving. And I guess the 5th foster home was almost like a real home. And she was going to spend Thanksgiving, because you're in college. When you're in college, you're out of the foster system. So the last one she had, and think about that, you're 18 years old, you're done. You got no more parents anymore. The last one she had ended up being great. So she was going there for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So in 2 weeks, I'm going to go up to Oregon, because he hired her. I'm going to go up to Oregon and I'm going to get to meet this person in person. And I want to start a wager in our business. She's going to be hard to beat, because she's gotten through a lot of stuff. So if you're on the call right now and you grew up like me in New Mexico, wishing that you had a little bit more power, or you grew up in the like Omar, and maybe you dealt with a little prejudice and you were a little different. Maybe you came from another country and didn't speak the language, or maybe you're in the foster system and you're wondering what to do with yourself. I think Omar just laid it out pretty well. And if you want to meet Omar or work with Omar, look up his business and see if you can follow the path that he did. And Omar, I want to say thank you very much. You know that I've been chasing you down to do this.
I really appreciate you. Thank you for your patience here too.
To do this podcast. And I told you that I wanted you on the first season because I heard the other podcast you did for us with Lulu, and it was everything I expected. So thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for continuing to live on the edge of excellence.